Well, good. Hello. Good to see you, Tamar. Excited for our conversation, and you have such a unique and interesting background. Thrilled to have a chance to work with you through Scribble capacities and all of the things, all things tech. But now at your great seat at Glean. So looking forward to digging in. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Elizabeth, and great to see you again.
So a few things we'll cover. We wanted to make this interesting and not your run-of-the-mill interview, but of course, want to talk about building and selling products in the AI era. You're an absolute superstar at that. What you look for in a founder, what are those super talents that you try to draw out? And then what your point of view on AI broadly and where we are in the cycle. So those are just a few of the things, but we will try to get you off track a little bit too. But first, just talking about how AI will change us and picking our heads up to that. So we wanted to ask you a fun question that we did a little digging, but we learned that your dad was a psychiatrist. And a lot of the time when you were growing up, he asked about people's motivations and would come out of a meeting and then would ask you, what are those people's motivations? So some of those might be hardwired, but technology, I guess from the advent of the wheel to the printing press to the internet, all of us are shaped. AI clearly will do the same, maybe with even a greater extent. Do you imagine that that might change our motivations as a culture?
Well, you clearly did your homework, so I'm impressed. And yes, it was absolutely something we discussed a lot is, well, why are people doing things? And if I think about AI and technology, it changes how people interact in a very fundamental way, but I don't think it actually changes motivations. It might change how they are expressed. What do people want? People want connections to other people. They want status. They want other people to know their status. And these are things that have been always true. And since we know the recording of history, but how you get that status can change. And how you express yourself in your relationships can change. And that, I think, technology has changed, like with the phone, of our attention spans. Like, so how we operate has changed. Everybody talks about our attention span changing. And with AI, people may not be able to write without AI. And that's another thing that people are saying, this next generation, they're not as good at writing, but they can write with AI. Is that good? Is that bad? It's just different. And it's absolutely will change. But the fact that people want to communicate effectively to get other people to listen to them, I think won't change.
Yeah, so you totally agree. And I even noticed with my young children, the way they interface with Chat GPT is saying all on voice, hey chat. And then they go on to have a conversation and there's no, even typing at that point with young kids.
It's wild.
So, okay, on to some tech products. So when you look at products like Glean, and describe a little bit about what Glean is for those who don't know, how do you imagine AI will change user motivations and behavior? And what do you expect will emerge as important and maybe that was less so over the past few decades?
So what is Glean? Glean is a work AI platform. So Glean started as enterprise search. We index and understand all of the data that you have in your organization, whether it's in Google, Microsoft, Salesforce, Slack, Atlassian. We can crawl all of that data. So you can ask a question, you can find an answer in all of your enterprise data. So think about it as if you had an LLM and you had AI, but that understood everything about the context of your work. So we build what's called a knowledge graph, understanding the projects that you work on, the people you work with. So who do you work with? And those people, like if we're communicating and collaborating a lot on a document and there's another one with the same title and I'm searching for it, I'm going to find the one that we're collaborating on because I work with you all the time. So Glean then has built a platform where you can build agents on top of the context of your organization. So Glean is a system of context for your organization. You can build agents to automate work on top of that. So that's a little bit about Glean. It is going to change. AI and Glean are going to change how people work in that it's going to take a lot of the toil away. So when I was at Slack, one of Stuart's favorite expressions was hyper-realistic work-like activities. It was like people who are really busy and they're working really hard and they're turning around documents, but it's not real work. It's like not impacting the business. It's not moving things forward. A lot of that type of work is going to be done by AI.
Mm.
And so there's two possibilities. It could be people want to be seen and they start generating all of these reports that no longer take a lot of time. You get overloaded, but I don't think that's going to last long because it's not sustainable. And then the AI is just going to read the AI reports that are generated. Or people are going to say, wow, there's all this work I used to do that I no longer need to do. The AI can do it, and I can work on much more strategic work.
Mm.
And that is, I think, what is going to, where we're going to land is that you may need fewer people because you don't need to do all that, but people's motivations will be, oh, I get to work on like these interesting things. I don't have to like spend hours on the spreadsheet. I don't have to spend hours like answering these questions that I've answered a million times and the AI can do just as well. And so I think that's going to be really interesting of how you show up and how you make an impact. And back to motivations, people will be motivated to make an impact in a creative way and via avenues that the AI won't be able to outshine them.
Yeah, very good point. Do you have a ratio yet that you're seeming to find of how like 3 people is the former X number of people, or what you think?
No, not at all, because it depends on the job.
Okay.
And I think a lot of jobs, what it's going to be is it's not going to be, some jobs it'll be fewer people, but some jobs it'll just do a lot more.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I don't think there's a lot of this, will there be fewer engineers? Will there be more engineers? I subscribe to the number of engineers will not change significantly, but the output will.
Yep. Great.
And then you have this risk of like generating too much crappy software. So then you got to like say, okay, you can't just output more. It has to actually be good, but you can iterate faster. So, but we'll get into that.
Definitely. Well, that transitions well to building products in this AI era. And how do you think product building is different now that you've had a seat throughout the cycles? And walk me through from the very kernel of early ideas to shipping and iterating, like you mentioned, and what's changed about it.
It's faster. It's so much faster. It's wild. I've been through lots of these technological changes, and I haven't seen a shift this much in how we work. So from the very beginning, so first, kernel of an idea, all these prototyping tools, V0 from Vercel, Lovable, now we've got Figma Make, like there's so many prototyping tools out there. I did a presentation a couple of weeks ago to a set of product managers on how PMs at Glean use Glean. And I asked, and it was a room of like 50 PMs, how many PMs are using tools to help prototype? Almost everybody in the room raised their hand. And so that you have an idea, you're a PM, you don't have any engineers or the engineers are busy, you can just say, make me a prototype like this, move this around. How would you display this kind of UI? And it takes you a couple hours. It's so much faster. Now, we haven't gotten to the point where you can really change those prototypes. You can click a button and then it'll be created because there's still disconnects and production code and all that, but we'll get there. So I think one, we're prototyping, and then we have a lot of examples of like how PMs at Glean are using Glean to get customer feedback.
Yeah.
So you don't have to listen to hours of customer calls. You can say, here's a year's worth of customer calls. Go in, analyze them, like listen to them, analyze them, tell me what all the features are. It's game changing in how you can get your feedback. Then you've got user research. You can use AI tools to do your user research. You can have an AI asking people questions. This one really, some things are so obvious when somebody says them, but you don't think of them. So I was talking to a guy who's a CEO of one of these AI user research companies, and he said that the participants are more honest because they hold themselves back of criticizing software to a person, but to an AI, they don't mind criticizing, and they'll be much more honest with the feedback.
Interesting.
Like, again, like super obvious, but like,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah, and we have a company within the Scribble portfolio called Brox.ai, and they're simulating user research and studies. So you can essentially have a virtual panel that has been asked a battery of questions and is already simulating that and what they've wanted. So just wild to think how this changes.
And it's all good. It's all making you build better products.
Definitely.
And then, of course, there's the actual development. There's all the tools, Claude Code, Cursor, Codium, now Codex, like you name it, the Gemini tools. And so, course, we're using all of them, we're testing all of them, we're integrating Glean into all of them. And so I don't think that most companies have really internalized how much it's going to change, but I think we're definitely using all of those tools for faster iteration, faster to market. So I feel like every single step has changed.
Definitely. And you've worked with thousands of PMs throughout your career, I imagine. But what do you think, in addition to what they have to learn, but what's even trickier to unlearn in this era?
Ooh, what do you unlearn? It's just to change the way your normal mode of operation is going back to how you've always done things.
Mhm.
And so you just naturally will go to Gong and start listening to the calls.
Yeah.
Like your instinct is to do that. Your instinct isn't let me figure out how to do something new. And it takes a while, and you have to really go. A small example, when I joined Glean, Glean can answer all these questions for you. And you start just asking the person sitting next to you. You say, ask the person oh, who's the AE on this account, or where can I find this information? And then you kind of get shamed of like, Tamar, you can ask Glean, it's going to know. And it took me a while to change my behavior. And then I'd be like about to send a Slack message to somebody asking a question. I'd be like, no, let me try Glean first. And then I'd be like, I was going to ask our head of engineering about some like cost, like what are the cost implications of X versus Y? And I was like, I'll type this long message. And I'm like, And then I went to Glean, and there was literally a document explaining exactly what I was going to ask it.
Yes.
And I was like, whoa, I just saved everyone so much time. So just that behavior change is what you need to unlearn how you used to do things. And it has to be very conscious. And you keep needing to interrupt yourself, or like an engineer saying, I should use Script for this. I shouldn't just write it. But then once you get into that flow, you don't know how to not do it anymore.
Yes. And even a personal hack that I've applied since this all came out over the last couple of years, I still have a sticky note on my monitor that says, where can AI help me today? And so it's right there. So every little task, because I agree, you think, oh, it doesn't take me that long to just like shoot someone a WhatsApp or something like that. But how do I?
It interrupts them, it interrupts their train of thought, it interrupts you. And then what we're finding, and I've talked to other people is finding the same thing, is that people who are fresh out of school and been more trained in their learning with AI, it comes much more naturally. So us that have been in the workforce for a while have to work harder to get to that natural state of using AI.
Yes. Oh, I very much agree. Well, one of the well-known maxims in the next decade has been trying to avoid changing behavior. That's something we talk about in when we're investing and looking and evaluating at a company. But that's really impossible to avoid now. So are there frameworks you use around behavior change, and how would you advise founders who haven't had to experience this? I mean, there's so much psychology involved too.
So I'm not sure if I agree that there hasn't been behavior change before. I think that as an investor, you'll probably look at it and say, this will be harder for this tool to be adopted if it's a behavior change. But some of the biggest changes did require behavior changes. And so if I look at even Slack, in order to use Slack effectively, we talked about this a lot, in that you can't just take an email and say, I'm going to send that same email in Slack. You have to change how people communicate in the organization. So it's that same ethos, is how do you help people understand that if they work in a different way, it's going to be more effective.
Yeah.
And you have to show them the value, and you have to continually, you have to really spoon feed it in some way. And you also have to start small.
Yeah.
So you start with the little wins. If you go in and say, you're going to change everything, people just resist. And so one of the things that we did with Glean is we were finding people didn't know how to use the assistant. It's a blank box. They don't know what they do. Either they just have no idea what to put in there, or they think that Glean can read their mind and say, what should I do next week? And it's well, we don't know if we have no context. And so how do you lead the way?
Right. Well, give us some real examples. I'd love to hear some that we should plant in our brains.
Oh, of course. Well, so what we found with Glean is that we implemented the ability to create and save and share prompts. And so usually in an organization, you get a very small percentage of people who are using the prompts and know how to do it. So that's kind of what we did is we said, let's make it really easy to, Elizabeth, you're an expert in AI and I'm not. So you're going to share the prompts you use. And then I kind of realize, and then I can look. And what was interesting is we found that companies that were saving and sharing prompts, their usage of assistants significantly increased, although they did not use those prompts.
Interesting. Just the awareness factor.
Yeah. So that's what, like, how do you lead people into what they can do? So what are some things that people are doing? There are all kinds of things that people are doing, but first you want just the simple things like finding an expert. I'm about to implement a new feature and who is the expert in engineering who could help me? So like who sends the most messages on that? Who's writing the most documents? Where can I find all these documents? So there's the simple stuff first. And then you're like getting ready to talk to a customer. I use this all the time. We have agents that we've created that I'll be like, I'm going to meet Zillow next week. And then the agent will just say, brief me for a customer meeting. But what does it do? It looks at the latest data from Salesforce. It looks at all the latest bugs that are associated or tickets that are associated with this customer. When were the last interactions? What was promised to them? Are there Slack conversations about any issues that they have brought up and we made? So that's like, you get this full picture of the customer and I don't need to ask anyone. I go and then I get a nice document and I'm briefed for the customer meeting. And like, I've gone through this in so many companies where I'm like, oh no, you need to brief me. You want me to talk to this customer? I don't know what the latest is. They brief you, but they forget about an incident that happened. And it's like all this back and forth and it wastes everybody's time. And so like, I never take prep meetings for customer meetings.
Yeah.
The other one that I really like from this is me personally, but is give me an update on a feature. So we'll be working on our deep research feature. And I have an agent that says, update me on this feature, and same thing. It looks at everything, including the Slack conversations when an engineer yesterday might have said, ooh, I think there's an issue, where that wouldn't be in Jira anywhere. That wouldn't be in any kind of database. And again, like I said before, I don't have to waste anybody's time. So I don't have to go ask the PM or engineer. I get the update. So all of these things that automate things that you used to do manually are where we're seeing a lot. I could keep going, but I'll pause here.
No, I love that. And it's something I love chatting with my running partners even about, because everybody uses it in such a different way. And those are the things we just need to keep sharing so we all can learn from those. So, well, good. Well, let's transition a little bit into selling products in this AI era. What do you think is really different right now about selling these products into SMBs or the enterprise? And what are some of the hardest hurdles you're experiencing that are really unique to AI?
I think the things, it goes back to speed, is that, so I was talking to a head of AI in a large bank, and she was like, basically like, help. I get so many startups coming to me every day, and I don't know how to evaluate them because just the volume is so huge. So I would say there are two things about selling. One, you have to be able to show the value. And you can't just say, here's what we do, because you have to say, and here are customers that are using it and found value, and here's how they found value and what they found value in. There are too many companies out there that are making promises that don't work. And so a lot of the buyers are being jaded because like, oh, I tried this startup, I tried that startup, but it didn't really do its promise. So being able to effectively show how it works, and even if you're an early startup, you can do that with design partners, but it has to be real wins. So that's one category. And the second category is security. So that is the biggest stumbling block from everyone, is security and data privacy. And you can't play lip service. You have to have it like built into your product from day one. And I think, again, a lot of startups are like, that's hard. I'm going to deal with the fun part of the product. We'll go back to that later. I'm going to say I do all those things, but then a CISO digs in and you really don't. So how do you really convince people that you're taking that seriously?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and through all of my time in the past, when I was at Andreessen Horowitz and working with the Fortune 500, just changing that, how do they adopt technology too? But when you look across your customers now, what are the profiles that have been the strongest early adopters? And who is that person actually within the company as well?
Definitely engineering, like the engineering organization. So our early adopters were mostly tech companies, but now we've branched out and we've got financial services, retail, like basic construction companies, like basically now everything, because everybody needs to adopt AI. So I would say, but within organizations, engineering and customer support were the first ones, because customer support is so easy to measure. How long does it take to close a case? Well, we shave 20 seconds off of it or 40% off of it. It's such a huge win. So it's just very, very easy to measure. So that was a big one. And engineering, engineers love using the new technology, and it makes them faster and more productive. So they're very early. So those start. And then the third is sales. So these are the more, and what we find is with corporations, when you get in and you can measure the value in one or all of these three domains, then the rest kind of comes, because then like all the ones that are harder to measure are like, wait, but they have this cool tool over there. I want that too. And they're being able to automate their performance reviews. I want that too. So because Glean is horizontal, then it works for everyone, but it definitely those are the departments that we see leaning in first. And it's interesting with CIOs. Now I have a little bit of a survivorship bias, because the CIOs I talk to are the most forward leaning, but a lot of the CIOs are like, we need to adopt AI, and how do I get the organization to move? They're going really slow and they're not moving. So the good CIO is really, really beneficial.
Yeah, that's great. And what's one or two tactical pieces of advice to founders who are selling to B2B or selling a B2B product in a startup?
Understand their workflow, because a lot of what these products are doing is like, oh, cool technology, I'm going to use it for this. But it's like one small slice of what somebody does in their day, and it's not as beneficial. Like, so if you're selling into finance or engineering or customer support, like really do your homework.
Yeah.
It's no different than any software.
Yep.
It's like, it's back to the jobs to be done, but understand from end to end what the full workflow is, and the products that win are going to be the ones who understand that full workflow.
Yeah. Now, you've had the chance through your career, you've had to take lots and lots of customer feedback, I can imagine. What are your most non-obvious lessons from Slack, Google, now where you are, or beyond?
I never know what's obvious and what isn't obvious.
Sure.
I mean, it's like, you got to listen to your customers. And so what are the things with customer feedback is, one, you need to ask the right questions. And just asking about your product, again, it goes back to what I was just saying about jobs to be done. That's not the right question. It's like, what are your pain points? What are the things that are the hardest for you? What are you finding looking for a solution, and you tried and you didn't find them? Not, I have this cool thing, what's your opinion on it?
No.
Like you just don't get anywhere. You don't get to real answers. So you have to be centered around the customer to understand them, not centered around what you're selling. I think that's just it's an overlooked point of how you talk to customers, and good, like user researchers, good PMs can really facilitate that information from people and draw it out of what they need and what they're looking for.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is, if you're getting a lot of customer feedback, that's great. The worst thing is when you build something and everyone pats you on the back, great job, this looks great. No, that's
Not
like
using it.
Exactly. They're not using it. If they care about the product, you will be inundated with feedback, and you'll be like drowning and be like, I can't do all of that. But if you're a startup founder, that is like the best sign that people care.
That's a good thing to take note of. So we touched a little bit on founder superpowers, and we all get to work with so many, and then we touched on how building products has changed. But where do you think founder superpowers start to change when it comes to these products? And are there different attributes? We talked about like being literally AI native, growing up with that's all you know. But what are some others that might end up being even more important now?
I would say a couple things. One, since the ecosystem is moving so fast, you have to be up on what's going on. And you have to have, you yourself don't have to read everything because it's too hard, but you have to figure out how you get what's important, and you have to be looking at the horizon and say, okay, assuming LLMs continue to get better, how is that going to change how people work, and how am I going to fit in then? Because I think if you're building for the technology today, you're not going to last long.
Yeah.
You have to be building for where it's going. And that's really, really hard. But when you talk to good founders, they're constantly thinking about that.
Yeah.
They're constantly thinking, like, we haven't had a time where the technology underneath you is changing so fast. Like the latest was like cloud and then mobile, but those were changing, but they weren't as substantial a change, and they were more predictable. Like when cloud started, you kind of knew where it was going.
Mm-hmm.
This one, it's less predictable, so you have to keep on refining, and I think that makes it really hard. So the trait that I think is the most important, which has always been important to founders, but it's even more important, is resilience. So just because OpenAI launches a product and it looks and it smells like your product doesn't mean you're going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
You have to figure out, because just because like it used to be Google and Microsoft, and just because they launch something that's competing with you doesn't mean it's going to be any good. It doesn't mean that it's going to actually do what they say it's going to do.
Yeah.
It's like always the case. And so don't get like discouraged when you see another startup launching something. You know what you have. That resilience and that persistence is, I would say, always been an important trait, and is even more so an important trait now.
A very good point. And we've talked about how the PM org and the engineering orgs have clearly been changed, immediately by AI. What other areas and functions within a startup do you think will become even more changed as we grow?
I think that like it's going to be fascinating how developing changes, like PM, design, and engineer. I think they're going to like kind of morph, and they're going to merge into one.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, and I don't think it's going to take that long.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But it's going to be a really interesting job.
Yeah.
But it's just going to be very different. And I've been talking to a lot of like young engineers, engineering leaders, PMs, like how is this going to change? And I think they need to be agents of change and be leading the way in some ways. So that's the one I have more kind of my arms around. But even like finance, like look at what finance teams do. So much of what they do is going to be automated. So these jobs are going to become much more strategic and much more, what is your opinion of how the ecosystem is going to change, how modeling is going to change, all of this, and you're going to get to do the most interesting stuff.
Right.
And it's going to be, a lot of people are throwing around the word taste, because like LLMs and AI can produce lots of stuff.
Right.
Whether it's a blog post or a strategy document or software, but this like taste of what actually is going to work is going to be the most important commodity.
Yeah. And are you in tune enough with the customer, or you're set to know what and having good taste is all about? Definitely. Now, distribution's always been tough, and it's getting even harder. And you mentioned, if you're a startup and one of the big LMs just launches your same thing, you're not necessarily dead. But what are some of the ways you've seen startups break through the noise? And if you were starting one today, how would you be thinking about distribution that was different, just a couple of years ago?
I don't actually think it's changed. I think distribution is always really hard.
Yeah.
And it's like the big companies have by far the biggest advantage. Not only do they have platforms for distributing, like Google Search, and the sales force that is needed, but the only way to break through the noise is through PLG, is to have a product that's better.
Yeah.
And to get some kind of viral hook. Like when Andre Karpathy, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, tweets about your software, then you go viral. And so kind of getting in those right circles. But that was true with like Instagram. If you've read like the book on the early founding of Instagram, they did the influencers. So it's kind of the same. It's like everything, it's the same, but the knob is turned to like high intensity.
Yes. Okay, a few rapid fire. What's being overly hyped right now about
AI? Automation without human in the loop.
What's being underhyped right now?
Automation with human in the loop. I feel like underhyped is LLMs, if they froze and didn't do anything else, there's so much more we could do. There's so much more we can take advantage of. I think we're only scratching the surface of what we can do today.
Required reading for each of us. What are you reading right now about AI tech that you love?
I think it's so hard to stay up to date. So I have a couple of newsletters that do like here's the summary of everything launched. So there's one called TLDR AI. There's another that's Ben Bites. It's like a scan in the morning. Oh, here's all the things that launched. And honestly, like Twitter/X is, if you follow the right people, you get the sentiment of, oh, like this tool is actually people are liking and good. So there's no like long form reading right now. It's how do I stay abreast of what's going on?
Oh, good. I want to get on those two digests. And just to throw you for a loop, what's a personal book totally unrelated to AI that you find interesting right now?
A personal book, you said?
Yes, keep us a little balanced.
So since I joined Glean, I haven't been doing as much reading as I did before, but I like books on leadership, and there's one called A Team of Rivals, which is about Lincoln, and like it's a long book, but it's about his cabinet, and then you learn a lot about the Civil War. But it was just so fascinating about seeing him as a leader.
I love that. And when we look back at the beginnings of each tech wave, and you've had the amazing career to see a lot of them, it's pretty comical about how wrong we are often about the ways it'll be used. What do you think we'll look back on now and laugh about?
That we weren't doing more today with AI. Like everybody came in and like humanity is doomed. AI is going to kill everyone. And I mean, that was just like a year ago. And like now people aren't even using it for like the simplest things. And so I hope that we'll laugh about all those doomsayers. I mean, I'm a techno optimist. I don't think I could work in this profession if I wasn't. But I think that it'll be like the rotary phones. Like, wow, we actually like built these kind of spreadsheets ourselves. Like, and we didn't adopt this stuff faster to do it for us, and we continued doing it for a couple of years when we didn't have to.
Yeah, it's so true. I was building the Lego snapshot camera yesterday with my 8-year-old, and he came up and we literally had to explain what this was and what this camera that had film in it was, and that was not so many years ago. So, and then last question for you. You see some holes probably in products that you wish existed, or some areas. If a startup founder were setting out today, give us one or two areas you're like, I need that, and you haven't found the great solution yet.
If I had a really good idea, I would start a company. But I think coordinating people is one of the hardest things that a leader does. Like you set your objectives, and you want people to update them, and like they're agents that we could build to do that. But somehow it just never works. Like getting people to say, like, how do you get them to not ever have to update anything anymore? Yeah. So now there are tools like Glean and like other tools that we can build agents to do that. I just haven't seen it really work, of like getting them to be able to just do their work, and that the communicating across seems to be elusive.
Yes, people management is hard. Solve that.
Yeah, some people say that AI, you're not going to need managers, AI will do it. I just don't buy that.
Yeah. Oh, and then it'll go on to touch the HR orgs too, and on and on. So much greatness ahead. Well, thank you so much for sharing a little bit with us, and absolutely admire your career to date, and glad to have you in our corner.
Thank you so much. This has been so much fun.